Welcome to the Powered by Age-Friendly City Zoomcast reality-style podcast.
We are movers and shakers, shaking up the old notion of silent, helpless, invisible seniors.
This is a new series of podcasts funded by the City of Vancouver and the 411 Senior Center Society.
As PBA AFC ambassadors, we
raise awareness,
share our original stories and poems,
inform, advocate, and involve seniors in discussing important social issues.
In short, these podcasts will help us,
you, in creating an age-friendly city for Vancouver today,
tomorrow the world.
You can hear us everywhere podcasts are heard. Good afternoon. I'm Charlotte Farrell. Happy to welcome you here for our Thursday Powered by Age-Friendly City podcast creation program, which is a Zoomcast. And we usually start by having each person introduce themselves. And I'm going across my left to right. So, well, I'll start with Veronica. But Veronica is a special guest, and she's going to be more thoroughly introduced by Pat. But we'll just start right now with you saying who you are, first and last name, so if people follow through the podcast and they hear your name, they'll know who you are.
Sure. So it's Veronica Grossi, and I'm the program manager at Volunteer Grandparents.
Pardon me?
My name is Veronica Grossi, and I'm the program manager at Volunteer Grandparents.
At Volunteer?
Grandparents.
Grandparents. Thank you.
Okay. Marion, we have the honor of having the chairman of the 411 board on the line with us.
Yeah, I'm Marion Pollock, and I'm the board president of the 411 Senior Center.
Okay, Leslie?
Yes, my name is Leslie Hebert. I'm a longtime New Westminster resident, an ESL teacher. I teach online. Also a writer, member of the New Westminster Literary Arts Society, and a regular attendee at Poetic Justice.
Pat?
Hi, I'm Pat Hogan, and I'm, among other things, I'm a member of Quirky, which is a queer imaging and writing collective for elders. And I've been with them since the start, which has been about 13 or 14 years now. I've also, for a lot of years, put on events and concerts with my production company series. I still do a bit, not as much as I used to, but I'm still in there.
Okay, Gail.
Yes, Gail Harwood. I am a member of, I'm a member of 411 Seniors. I live in the People's Republic of East Van. I guess I've been writing poetry. I'm a novelist, but I started writing poetry, and I guess I'm back to poetry again, which suits me fine. And I'm also a photographer. So and I've taken pictures many years. Anything else? Oh yes, I also have private students online. So the students have become online now. So that's who I am.
Wonderful. Robin.
I'm Robin Erickson, and I am a community radio maker. And yeah, I guess a bunch of other things, but that's my sort of primary interest in being here, and hopefully a resource to you.
And brings us to Luke.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, my name is Luke. I'm basically helping out with the tech support and back-end data management and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, so Pat invited a special guest, and maybe for people who may not remember, you can give us a connection to the story that you read a couple of weeks ago.
Right. Well, the story is about Grandpa John, and Grandpa John was our volunteer grandparent. I thought it was called something else back then, but I'm not sure about that. Anyway, Volunteer Grandparents itself, the organization, had just started up, and myself with my two kids, a son and a daughter, we were the first matched family, a couple, to under that organization. And so this story was about Grandpa John, who was quite a interesting, unique individual, and we stayed with for quite a few years. And even after my son grew up, he used to, on his way through Vancouver, he was always traveling around the world, he would stop and see Grandpa John, who by this time is now in a care facility, and they'd play chess together, and he was a good friend of his. So anyway, that's a little bit about the story, and also, so that led me to think, I'm wondering if volunteer grandparents are still around, because it's been many years. So I went online, and that's how I met Veronica and found out, yes, indeed, and she knew something about the start of it. So anyway, that's the background.
So Veronica is going to share with us now more of an overview of volunteer grandparents and some examples of what they do, and then an invitation if any people within our group would like to get involved.
Yeah, so happy to hear from Pat. So we love to hear about the history of the organization. So Volunteer Grandparents was started by a social worker who was working at the crisis center in Vancouver. And back in the early 70s, she received back-to-back calls, first from a senior who was feeling really isolated, had no family around. And then the second call that she received was from a single parent who was really struggling raising their child. And so she hung up the phone at the crisis center and said, why can't we put these two people together? They're looking for the same thing. They're looking for connection. They're looking for community. They're looking for support. And so she turned to her friend, Nancy Kirk, who was the volunteer coordinator at the crisis center at the time, and said, what can we do? How can we put these people together? And Nancy said, I know you can do it. So basically, that's how it started. She just saw a need in the community for connection. And so Marjorie went through applying for grants and secured a little bit of funding through the government and grew out the organization. I think it was originally in Vancouver on West Broadway, and then probably over about 20 years ago, it moved to Burnaby. And we're currently stationed at the Oldham SkyTrain station in Burnaby. So I'm the program manager currently at Volunteer Grandparents, and we still offer two core programs, basically. The one that Pat participated in sounds like the Family Match program, and that's where our volunteers over the age of 50 are screened and then placed with children between the ages of 3 to 14 that have no or limited access to their natural grandparents. And our volunteers commit to about 2 to 4 hours a week for a minimum of 1 year. And they do things together, activities that the children enjoy, that the volunteer shares their skills and their activities that they enjoy. So it's kind of a mutual, beneficial, shared time together. And the second program that we currently offer is called the School Grandparent Program, and that's where I place screen volunteers over the age of 50 in elementary schools to help, usually with the one-to-one literacy program. So a lot of our volunteers support early literacy in children and in elementary kids. And they're not just matched to one child. They're usually paired with a resource teacher and support a number of children in each classroom. So those are our two kind of current programs that we offer. We also have some volunteers that act as ambassadors, and so they get out into the community and promote the organization. We are very small, so a lot of people haven't heard about us just because we do have limited funding. It's just basically me as a program manager working part-time. And so we do pockets of promotion here and there, and then I usually get an influx of applications from families and volunteers, and I process them, and then we do a little bit more promotion periodically. And so kind of try to balance how much we get out into the community with what we can manage internally. And then I wanted to mention that we are always seeking volunteers, so we usually have quite a wait list for families. We serve Vancouver is one of the main areas that we serve, but obviously we serve Burnaby as well, and New West, and we also have volunteers and families in North Vancouver and West Vancouver as well. So those are kind of our main areas that we serve.
Are there questions people have?
Yes. Number one, for funding, have you ever considered heading up the Vancouver Foundation?
Yes, I believe I applied for Vancouver Foundation grant a couple of years ago. I haven't hit them up for a while, but I know with this, especially with this COVID pandemic, they have a new source of funding to help nonprofits with connection, especially connecting isolated seniors. So that's one thing that we are looking into right now, because we are trying to create more of a virtual presence and really support our volunteers to continue to be connected to their families virtually. I know some of the guidelines for getting together are easing up a little bit, but I think still we have to ensure social distancing at this time. So that's one thing we are looking into. We have our main source of funding right now is through our gaming. That's what our core funding is. But then I get pockets of grants, like I apply for like a Walmart grant that we've had support. We've had support from the city of Burnaby. So pockets of funding, but our core funding is through provincial gaming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we did have twice we've received the New Horizons for Seniors grant, which would really help develop our ambassador program. So I'm always open to looking and applying for grants and funding streams for sure.
So how do you support your volunteers? Do you use, well, of course, for administration, but is the deal that the people have their transit paid and things like that as their volunteers, or how does that work?
We don't usually cover transit costs usually, unless there's a need. Usually we support our volunteer matches through phone calls, check-ins to make sure that their matches are progressing well, if there's any challenges or issues that have come up. Because matching people is quite difficult, because you're looking not only for a fit with the senior and the parent, but you want the senior and the child to get along as well. So there's a whole dynamic that we do with our matching. So sometimes it needs quite a bit of support to continue to grow and develop and change. So that's how we generally support our matches, through phone calls. We do have an annual general meeting where people get together and we connect face to face, and we also have an annual volunteer appreciation picnic once a year. Unfortunately this year it's been canceled for the first time in forever, so but that's a really good opportunity for us to see face to face how the connections are really growing. And I would say, we ask that our volunteers commit for 1 year, but if it's a good match, a good fit, I've never had a volunteer say, "Oh, it's been a year, I'm going to try something new." They get quite ingrained into the family and connected, and they really become like true extended family.
Do people have to go to any kind of background check in order to get involved?
Yes, there definitely is a screening process involved. So the first step would be to submit an application and a criminal record check. And then also the volunteers submit 5 references, which I check. And then there's 2 interviews, one done at my office in Burnaby, and then the other one done at the volunteer's home. So it's quite an extensive screening, because you are working with a vulnerable population. We want to make sure that it's a safe process for the families enrolled. And I should say, one of the policies is that makes us a little bit different than like the Big Brothers Big Sisters, is that in the first 6 months of the match, at least one of the parents is present in the visits, and that way the parent is really getting to know the volunteer and vice versa. We don't want our organization to be seen as like, oh, free screen babysitters, because that's not what we're about. Sure, our volunteers offer a lot of support and relief to parents, especially if it's a single parent situation, but we don't want to be seen as a free screen babysitter. We want to be seen as creating true extended families.
Pat, you said your uncle was in, how old was he when he was involved? Oh,
Sorry?
Pat. Oh, you said your uncle was involved for quite a while. How old was he? Up to how long was he able to participate?
He was with the kids for a few years, and then actually we moved away from that. But a friend of mine with her kids, he became Grandpa John to them too. So there was that sort of continuation. But as I said, we all moved on as the kids grew up. But Ty, my son, years later, unbeknownst to me, he would stop off and see Grandpa John. In his later years. He's dead now, of course, but.
So that's what we see quite a bit. Oftentimes initially the volunteer is spending a lot of quality time with the family, but as the years progress and perhaps the volunteer slows down a little bit or moves to a new residence, that's when the family and the children step up and really provide that support to the volunteer when they need it. It's really a circle of giving, and it's quite amazing to see the long standing relationships that have come out of this program.
What kind of training? What kind of training do you give your volunteers?
Yeah, that's a great question. So with our volunteers, they all come from diverse backgrounds. Some of our volunteers have had children, but they've never had their own grandchildren. They've always wanted grandchildren. Other volunteers have had their own grandchildren and a lot of experience with children, but have love and time to give to another family. And then other volunteers have never had children of their own, but they've always known that they love children. So we have a diverse set of experiences and skills. And so with our training, it's more like an orientation to go over our policies, our procedures, and then the ongoing support that we give with the matches. So I do suggested activities, and also, of course, the parent gets involved with suggesting activities. And when the parent and the grandparents spend time together, they're learning about the family's rules and the interactions and trying to be consistent with the rules. So it's kind of an ongoing learning process. Mm-hmm. But it's hard to have kind of one specific training because the children ages range from 3 to 14. So our safety training, is kind of focuses on the younger ages, because the older children have a lot more ideas of the activities that they want to do and things like that. So our orientation and safety training is more specific to younger ones to make sure that they're safe.
What is the program that you're doing with the schools?
Yeah, so our school grandparents, they go into the elementary schools. We have a number of partnered schools in Vancouver and in Burnaby, and they're connected usually with either a resource teacher or a homeroom teacher, and they support kids' literacy. So they're given assignments by the teacher and directed to who needs additional support, and usually sits one-on-one with the children that need additional support and listens to them read and helps try to boost their self-esteem and self-confidence when reading and with their literacy skills. And they usually spend about 2 to 4 hours as well in the classroom a week.
Did you want to share how, yeah, the question danced across the screen out of my head. With online, what ways are you using online communications with your program now?
Yeah, so it's been a challenge for sure. We do Volunteer Burnaby is our sister organization, so we share the office with Volunteer Burnaby. So we've been doing staff meetings through Zoom with with Volunteer Burnaby staff. And then I've just been doing kind of email outreach, letting them know that I can be connected by Zoom or email, or I'm checking my voicemails as well if anyone needs support. But we are really dependent on our summer student who's hopefully coming on in mid-May to help with the virtual kind of support. So if any volunteer needs additional support on how to access, let's say, a Zoom meeting, or how to connect with the grandchild in a different way, that's one thing we are looking at. Maybe like a pen pal situation, bringing back the old school writing to each other, things like that. But right now we're just making sure that our current matches are just feeling supported, that we're still here to help where needed. I have an interesting story. I received a message from a volunteer grandmother who's been matched in Vancouver to a family who has 4 children, and this family lives on the 1st floor of an apartment, and so they don't have their own green space for the kids. And so this volunteer has continuously invited this family over to their home, because they have quite a huge lot and garden, and they've maintained their social distance, but have allowed the family to come and go as they need, just to let the children kind of blow off some steam in a healthy way, and have a place to actually play, and that way the volunteers can still watch from afar in a safe distance, but they're still remaining connected. So I kind of thought that was a neat idea, right? Because children can get very loud in an apartment building. I have one daughter who's 4, and I know how loud she can be if she's cooped up inside. So I think it's a win-win for both sides there.
Definitely. We have one participant. She's not on the call now, but a project she wants to do is to interview grandparents about what it means to be a grandparent, but then also kids. So where a person might not directly have grandchildren, it may be people who have got grandchildren through this program might be people that she could interview, because she wanted to get in the interview, what does having that person in their life mean to them?
Lovely. That sounds like a lovely project. We're always trying to capture the stories behind the scenes, because that's one thing that we don't do as well as we could. So that's why I'd be eager to interview even Pat to hear about her history with the program and capture that story. Unfortunately, Marjorie passed away in 2015, but I had the opportunity to go and meet her in 2010, because we wrote a little book trying to capture some of the stories. And she was just a fascinating lady to just connect with. And she was invited to our 2013 AGM, where she was the keynote guest speaker, because it was a 40 years of program delivery in the community. And so when we first reached out to her, she was so shocked that we were still around. She didn't know that volunteer grandparents still existed. So she was so pleasantly surprised that we were still offering the programs that she created. And it was just an amazing opportunity just to sit down with her and pick her brain, and she picked my brain, and it was a true collaboration. And she was just a lovely, lovely, inspirational lady for sure.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah.
Were you going to say something, Pat?
No, I was just nodding and agreeing.
Oh, it made your, when people are getting ready to talk, a yellow rectangle comes around them, so it lit up your rectangle.
It's almost like they sense your voice before you actually speak.
Yeah, how does it know?
I don't know, but that's, I've seen at times, a circle around the box and someone hasn't spoken yet, but it's almost like they sense it's coming out. I don't know.
Like clearing your throat. It's like.
Veronica, would you share your email address, your website, and contact information?
Sure. So probably the best email is info@volunteergrandparents.ca. So info@volunteergrandparents.ca. Our number is 604-736-8271. And our website is volunteergrandparents.ca. And so there is a lot of information on our website about our history, about Marjorie, about our programs, and all the applications are actually on there as well. And then there's our past annual reports. So if you want to get a little more in-depth picture of our organization, definitely check it out. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So yeah, I would definitely encourage anyone to reach out to me if you're interested in volunteering, or if you know a family that would benefit from our programs, then please share our information with them. We're always looking for wonderful volunteers and to meet the needs of our families.
Do you have any documents in writing about this?
Any
little brochures?
Yes, I do.
Well, when this is over, if you could send about 5 or 6 to the 411 Senior Center, we'll be able to put them up and give them to people who come in asking, because there are always people who come in with, who want to volunteer, so that'd be really helpful.
Perfect, sure, we'll do that. We also have a poster that you can, do you have a bulletin board?
Yep.
Yeah, so I'll include a poster as well.
That would be great.
Yeah. Okay, I could suggest maybe information for Century House in New Westminster as well, once things are over.
Okay.
Are you, Marion?
Yes.
Okay, we're right in sort of transitioning from hearing about volunteer grandparents to hearing a little bit more about what's happening. There's a document that you collaborated, several nonprofits collaborated on. You want to share some information about that?
Okay. Well, the 411 Senior Center is part of what we call the Alliance of Senior Centers, not BC, but it really is of Vancouver. So we're part of an alliance that includes the South Granville Senior Center and the West End Seniors Network. 411, we run an income tax clinic. Last year, we did over 2,000 low-income seniors' income taxes, but we had to close down because of 411, and we know that seniors are freaking out about this. In fact, yesterday, I got a call from the son of a senior who was wondering about his father's income tax, and today I got a call from a senior who's wondering about their income tax. Mostly people are wondering about their income tax, in part because they want to be good citizens, but because for a lot of low-income seniors, they get the guaranteed income supplement, and the guaranteed income supplement is part of the old age security program, but it's income-based, and if you do not do your income tax, in July, they cut you off your guaranteed income supplement. And so many seniors need that to live, so many. So we know that most senior, a lot of, we're not doing it. 411 Senior Center is not doing our income tax clinic, although we're working on ways to hopefully figure it out. And we know that most of the volunteer income tax clinics are closed down. We also know that seniors who are the most vulnerable for COVID-19, and so we can't really go out, to H&R Block, and we can't afford H&R Block anyways. So what we're asking is 2 related things. One is that the government delay filing of income tax for seniors until the end of December 2020, as opposed to July 1st, 2020. And the second is that people's guaranteed income supplement be maintained at its current rate, plus the annual quarterly cost of living until December 2020. Because if seniors lose the GIS, they're not going to be able to buy food, pay rent, or anything like that. So that's what we're doing. Since then, I have spoken to the NDP who are on side, but they haven't been able to get a change in policy. I've talked to MP Hetty Fry's office numerous times. They say they understand the situation and they're working to resolve it, but nothing has happened. And this morning, once again, I spoke to someone in the office of the Federal Minister of Seniors, and they say they understand our concerns, and the government's going to come out with a program. They're going to announce it sometime before June 1st. That's all they told me. So, you know, but we know that so many seniors aren't going to be able to get their income tax done. And so many seniors are so reliant on the guaranteed income supplement. So that's what I've been working on.
Now that the income tax deadline has been delayed, what's the relationship between that and the GIC?
GIS?
Yeah.
Okay, well, the income tax deadline has only been delayed to June 1st, 2020.
Oh, it's only June? Okay.
Only June. And that's why we want it to be delayed for seniors over 65 until December. So if a senior doesn't, if they don't make changes, if a senior doesn't get her or his or their income tax done, filed by June 1st, 2020, then they're at risk of losing their guaranteed income supplement. That's a concern.
And the problem
it's a fairly big one.
Just as the tax clinic was going to start at the 411 center, it was closed. So there were about 2,000 people last year. So it's going to take longer than June for that number of people to come in and get their taxes done.
Totally, and that's why we wanted the deadline for seniors over 65, because to be extended till the end of December 2020. You know, only and it's only people over 65. It's only people seniors over 65 who can get the guaranteed income supplement. So that's what we're calling for. I think I actually think it's very rational and reasonable.
Is there anything that individuals can do? Like you sent letters. Who were the representatives that you all sent the petition to?
Okay, we sent them to the 3 MPs that have ridings with the senior centers. That's Jody Wilson-Raybould, Jenny Kwan, and Hetty Fry. We also sent it to the Federal Minister of Taxation, the Federal Minister of Finance, the Federal Minister responsible for seniors, and I think Trudeau. What would be great is, yes, if seniors could phone their MPs and say, look, it's, you know, we're all told we can't go out. We're most vulnerable for COVID-19. We can't get our income tax done. We're worried about either ourselves or our friends or neighbors getting their income tax done. So please, for goodness sakes, you know, guarantee that until December 2020, at the earliest, seniors will, if they don't, you know, if they don't get their income tax done, they'll have their guaranteed income supplement maintained at the current levels.
And how do people find out if someone wanted to call their MP? How do they find out their contact information?
Mostly online. You know, you can actually. And I because I know MPs, I'm not sure how you do it, but there is a way you can do it online, and give your address, and they'll tell you who your MP is.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
I'm not good at that.
I've done this, so you can. All you have to do is ask Mrs. Google. I live at. And I can do that right now. But I had something to say about getting your taxes done. What I did is I had somebody do it for me. And so I called her and she said, well, I'm doing it by mail. So what I did is if the person is tech savvy, they can do it. They can scan their documents, and then I'm sure 411 Seniors still has volunteers, people who are willing to do this, that they would email it to you, Marion, or to whoever's in charge of this, and then send it out to the people who are doing the taxes, because I'm sure that a lot of low-income seniors have very simple taxes to do. I did it at Downtown East for many years.
If only it was that easy.
Another way of doing it.
No, just hang on. I want to respond to that.
Okay.
One of the, sadly, is we're caught up by Revenue Canada regulations, and they say, and I mean, and they haven't changed this yet. They say for privacy rights, people's income tax information can't be scanned and sent electronically.
Oh, okay.
So that's, I think your idea makes sense, but that's not, Revenue Canada has a different view.
There's a lot of bullshit done in the name of privacy, which
I'm just saying, I'm not making any comments. I'm just saying that's what they're saying.
Yeah. Another way that you can do it.
We're talking though, just how can you contact your MP? Because we can't send the document just on advocacy. If people wanted to follow up with just writing their representative, you mentioned Google. I noticed I put in Jenny Kwan's name, and within seconds, information came up about her. So that might be one way if someone just does, types in the name. If they don't know who represents them, do you, I guess, put in the zip code, your postal code?
Yeah, you put in the postal code and you got it. Yeah. Another way that you can do it is you can mail your documents.
No, you're right. And
we're doing it.
You're right. And that's one of the things that we're looking at, setting up all these processes. It just takes a while, right?
Yeah.
But I think you're 100% right about mailing, and I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah, so my hunch is these people that you're helping don't have computers. Is that right? Mostly.
Yeah. I mean, what we see at 411, not only in terms of this, but in so many things, especially in terms of information and referral, is that so many seniors, low-income seniors, either don't have, there's three things: don't have computers, can't afford the internet, and or in terms of filling out forms, just don't feel comfortable filling them out.
Yeah.
So there's three different things, but so many, we know, Leslie Raymond, our ED, knows about studies that said, use of computers and the internet is totally related to income.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now there's two people, Marion, in our center. David, I think his last name is Haldeman, and then Bonnie. And they're the ones who are working real hard at getting low-income seniors their computer and getting they're bugging people to give these people, various corporations to give these people free internet.
Yes.
The problem is, though, with the center closed, just as we got new computers to give to people that had been donated, the very week that they were going to be distributed was the week that we had to close because of safe distancing requirements. So it's just...
We're going to be open.
We need
we have to get it extended because, in fact, I'll write Don Davies is my guy.
That would be so good.
Write him.
Yeah, that would be so helpful, right?
No, that's fine. And I'll just put it out, say on Facebook to say, hey, I wrote and say, okay, all you disturbers of things, get out there.
Well, that's kind of how we vision the ambassadors, aside from podcasting, sharing the information and talking. But then as you know something, telling somebody else. And I think that was a great idea. If you post it onto Facebook, then other people can see and know to look up their representative. Leslie, today, I think you and Neil were going to do a sample from there's a book and poem that you're alternating, but
we have to both be together, and Neil had something else on today. I think he had a medical appointment today. He was mentioning apparently you do another poetic thing on Mondays. He thought that, and I'm not part of that Monday group, so we can either do it next Monday or next Thursday when we're both together.
Okay.
Yeah,
Monday is
quite
an open mic poetry that.
Yeah, so maybe next Thursday. It's quite lengthy, so I don't know, maybe 15, 20 minutes.
Well, what
Let's
we
see.
had talked about, Robin and I had talked, were talking about stories. A number of our members have got stories, and when the story goes on beyond 5 minutes, it gets to be long. But we thought if things that are interesting is doing a series, because CBC and some other sites that have podcast stories that are spinoffs from their main podcast, it's an episode. So we might hear the first 5 to 8 minutes of that and then continue it. It could be a running thing because
Oh yeah, I'm sure we could do sections of it because it's very easy to divide up. He's broken into, he's written a list of, I think, about a dozen short stories, and they're quite short, and then I've interspersed them with some poetry of mine, and it's all based around childhood memories. So yeah, I think we could divide it up very easily.
Okay, Leslie, are you going to do your poetry in Geordie again?
Poetry in Geordie?
Oh.
What was that?
Weren't you the one who, somebody was reading a poem, and it was really funny and really, really very good. And they were doing it in mostly the dialect of Newcastle and Tyne. I'm probably gotten wrong person.
No, that's not me.
I
don't do Geordie very well.
Okay, no, but it was, and she had the accent, and it was.
Sylvie.
Thought it was you. That's okay.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
Oh, it was wonderful.
It's interesting. Have if any other people had comments or thoughts about the medical appointments by video? We had 4 different people that had to be by their phone or computer today because they had a medical appointment scheduled by video. Have any of you experienced that?
Well, my husband had one with a physiotherapist last week. And it was very good because the physiotherapist showed him his x-rays, and then she watched his movements. So it was quite good. It went very well.
So he just walked in front of he walked in front of the computer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is something that, not as in my capacity as 411, but in my capacity as a patient, I've been looking at, and my concerns are and some of them, although I thought it was the one, is that it's a question of how they keep my medical information, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it kept in the cloud? Who has access to it?
Yeah.
And does any of it go to the States? Because I certainly don't want my medical information to be captured by the Patriot Act, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, those are valid concerns, and apparently there are a lot of security concerns around Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's been hacked, yeah.
I actually would be happier doing that kind of thing over Skype because I think Skype's much more secure, but that's just, everybody seems to like Zoom these days.
But did they give you
I
a
think
choice?
Zoom, for me, Zoom's easier to install than Skype.
Well, of course, the advantage of Zoom is that you can have 100 people.
Yeah.
Up to 100.
Did they give you a choice when they said you were going to have your appointment by video conferencing?
No, it was just Zoom. That's all they offered.
And this is where it becomes hard, right? Because on the one hand, seniors were not supposed to go out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have a car, so if I had to go to see my doctor, I'd have to take like 2 buses, right?
Mm.
But the other thing is, there is a platform that's like a co-op. I also don't want, like all, this money to be spent so I can do a medical appointment. I think it should be, I don't know how to explain it. I think companies like TELUS are making money off this, and I don't like that.
What, of people meeting on the internet?
Having these platforms where you can see your doctor. They're not free to, they're not free for they're not free for medical clinics. They're
Oh,
paying
that's
money.
right. Yeah, businesses have to pay for the application. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it, because we have a few people who were active with us who they can't afford their internet, so they're not able. They either have to go to someone
Yeah.
else's house to have them contact them, which is, both a security and a safe distancing issue.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some people that have, called because they're heartbroken that they can't get in on the program because they have a phone, but if their phone is part of a package or a bundle, they can't afford, the costs. They can't afford the extra costs. When 411 was in full operation, there were volunteers that advocated on behalf of some people. They advocated with TELUS or Shaw, whoever they had their bill with, to get the bill lowered. But that's one of the issues where, we were looking at who is the person to talk to over that kind of expense that seniors have, or that type of block that we have to a means of getting things done, like your medical appointment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a totally reasonable concern, like totally.
Is there who is over telecommunications? I mean, what ministry or
Well, this is the
department
problem.
deals with that?
Telecommunications.
That's a CRTC, right?
Yeah, it's federal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah.
So the pricing, that people can charge in different provinces, is left federally controlled, or is it left up to the province?
It's federally controlled.
Yeah.
There's this group that's much more active in Vancouver, but they're quite active in Burnaby, called Acorn Canada, and they're a group of low and moderate income people, and they have been having a long campaign to lower internet costs and lower cell phone costs, and they've been doing really important work.
They also just lost their case with the federal government, I believe, recently, where the costs aren't being lowered.
Sickening. There's no reason for it.
No, it's true. Yeah. Like anything, though, the lobbyists with those big moneyed corporations like wireless, they have a lot more buying power than the citizenry does. And so that's why it's really important as citizens to voice our opinions to the minister when they're making these kinds of decisions, because otherwise they just hear from the lobby.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, if people think it's a good idea, I'll take this up with the 411 board and the Seniors Issues Committee, because I never thought about it in a way that Charlotte put, that some people just don't have access to the internet or cell phones. So I'll do that if people think it's a good idea.
Yeah, there are people who it's a great deal of anxiety, because if they say this is how you have to have your appointment, and you don't have a phone, then you go and ask someone. I think people really, in tears and anxious or frustrated that other services, there are even more services that they are providing remotely, or people are saying they intend to provide remotely. And the BC Minister of Education announced last week that they bought 2,000 computers, laptops, and put them in the homes of families that couldn't afford them, so that kids would be able to catch up their work. They also contracted with tech people to go out to their homes, just like Best Buy has the Geek Squad. I'm not saying that they contracted the Geek Squad, but in the same manner, they hired people. He didn't say we were thinking about hiring. When he announced that last week, he said, we have hired people, tech people, to go out, set the computers up for the families, and show them how to get on it. So I think that somebody, but as an advocacy issue for seniors, it's really, important for seniors to have them, because more and more things are being offloaded over. Get the information, by this website, or get the information, or transmit your documents. You have to transmit the document as a secure document. like your life insurance policy. I made some changes in a policy, and agents are no longer delivering policies. They have to have a person go through an electronic sign up. So I think that really being able to find out who's the person to advocate to, or ask the finance minister, whoever we need to ask, we need to say if that could be done by the Ministry of Education minister for the province. Can our Minister Dix do something toward helping seniors to have access to a computer, because it's vital for social, social benefit and for health benefit.
Yeah, there's another issue around seniors and computers too, is actually, lots of them are afraid of computers or aren't confident around computers. Some of them just don't seem to be able to get the skills necessary. I mean, my sister-in-law, God love her, she bought a computer because everybody had a computer, but she's absolutely hopeless. And we've given her instructions and helped her time and time again, and then she just forgets. And right now she says, well, I don't have an email. Well, we've set her up with an email at least 3 times, and she's still saying she doesn't have an email.
It's my everything okay, Marian?
Yeah, I just can't have my phone's just falling. Sorry.
No, I know I have a friend who's the same age as my mother, and she's my friend here in Burnaby. She's totally computer literate, and I email her and things like that. But my mother, just people have analog brains and they don't have, just. People get left behind.
Yeah, and actually, this would be really, and I never thought about it in terms of this medical stuff, but I actually think at 411, this whole issue of the digital divide, we see all the time. And I think to do like a podcast, and I talked to Charlotte a while ago, but very, very, very briefly on that, like very briefly, to do a podcast on seniors and the digital divide. I think that would be great, because I think that it's, you have to fill out forms on, there's so much that you have to do on online, and that so many seniors can't do it. Yeah.
And I think, also sometimes it takes more patience. I'm older than my sister, but my sister has had several times lost her passwords or different things, and so her daughter and I were on about 3 hours a day, but she finally mastered being able to get some things done via Zoom. But, within this group, there have some people that have called, I won't give the name, but there are a couple of people that have called another person, and just in not rushing them, because sometimes a person could get so anxious that they're not grasping it, that they don't hear, or they feel like people are going to say, boomer or whatever derogatory thing about how long it takes. But there are 2 people that did help another person on the phone see that little triangle to understand what the Google story is, or the Microsoft story is, and how to download the app, and then understanding how to just navigate. So I think it's those of us that are more literate, and more of the things that are happening even within this group, as people discover how to do it, if they turn the keys and unlock it for somebody else, and make people really feel welcome and comfortable with what, like last week we were looking for that button. I didn't see the little carrot, and somebody was telling me a carrot down at the bottom. I didn't know. I felt so much happier when somebody told me about the carrot. So I think that that's one of the things that we had talked about as ambassadors, that this program is intended to help make peer leaders. And so as each of us, as we as coordinators, mentors, facilitators, help turn the lights on for some people, then those people help turn the lights on for others. So I think that it's not that they can't learn, it's just that sometimes there are barriers, and sometimes it's the pressure and feeling that they're going to be denigrated, or even frustration with themselves. Sometimes you just have to see it a few more times.
I think
Like Luke will attest.
I think it's beyond just seeing it also. You know, as a radio maker, I see this all the time, and it's not it's not something between ages. Young people experience this as well. When they're just shown how to do things, they don't have an opportunity to create the cell memory that it actually takes to recall how to do the thing that they need to do again, whether that's find their email icon, or whether that's, you know, record their voice, or make the sound come up on the board when they're making radio. And so I think, you know, when we're talking about any kind of technology, to do and show, but also to have that person do it themselves, and not just once, but a couple of times,
3 times,
so that they can more easily recall that activity and that action from their own brain, right? Rather than it's like, oh, I remember, but it's all mixed and mingled with all of the other things that I was shown how to do, right? And that's where the confusion comes in a lot. And I think, you know, there's something, and again, I see this in radio all the time, where there's this idea that technology will break, and that all of a sudden you will have exploded the world, right? And it's not true.
Yeah, that's that fear, right?
It totally is fear.
Yeah.
And so, you know, demystifying that you can hit all the buttons and it's not going to do anything, that you can recover, I think is also a really important aspect to demystifying how everybody, and like I said, it's not just a seniors issue. I think kids who grow up with technology, they seem like they have this savvy, but it really is because they're unafraid to push all the buttons,
Right.
you know, and they figure it out.
Yeah.
Because they're not afraid to push all the buttons.
FYI.
And we can figure it out too. We just have to hit all the buttons.
Yeah, but you have to have the confidence to hit the buttons. I remember when we first started using computers, like a few years back, and, you know, everybody was so afraid they were going to accidentally erase stuff.
Yes.
You know, my work's going to disappear. Well, no, because the computer always sends you a message and asks you if you're sure. But we were so afraid we were going to like destroy everything.
And I'm pretty computer savvy, but I can't get my camera on my computer to work on Zoom. You know, I have to do it on my cell phone. But, you know, going back to what you said, Charlotte, you know, there are about at least 18,000 low-income seniors in BC. Those are, if we just talk about the GIS. People receiving the guaranteed income supplement, and I don't think that any government has a capacity to give away 18,000 computers, right? So I mean, in many ways, rather than arguing for everyone to get computers, I think we have to say there has to be other ways to do this, right? If someone does not have, you know, have the technology, do it by the phone, or for goodness sakes, I mean, I'm old enough to remember when the doctor came to my house.
That's right.
Yeah, well, exactly. We have to keep other options open. There are always going to be people that don't have access to a computer.
Okay, well, there's 2 things I wanted to say. Number one, my clinic, I'm a patient at Reach Clinic, and they phone people because it's, you know, low, moderate income people, and plus people with issues. Another thing I want to say is about technology. Number one, FYI, a lot of kids aren't naturals to this. I teach them.
Yes.
Number one. Number two, when things started out, the technicians that you would call to save my bacon, they were just rude and why don't you do it so fast? So somehow, some way, especially with Best Buy, the Geek Squad is very good. They're very patient, and I love those guys. They help me technologically. But the millennials seem to be a little more patient, and I ask them, can you give me a little more time? My site's not great. I can't find things easily. Where is it? Tell me direction. And they're usually fine. They're getting a little better. But one thing I've learned is we have time. We have a lot of time for things now.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking that we're right now going through calling people that have an internet. We have both their phone number and we have their email to see what's the barrier to their getting on. In some cases, people are just confused, or some cases, people it's just demystifying. We're finding out, actually been asked to find out, because I understand that a number of senior centers are looking at doing delivery of their programs through virtual media, looking at doing things like craft classes or yoga, a number of things, and kind of looking within this program as a demonstration project to what extent are we able to help people, whether it's by their phone or whether it's by a laptop or notebook, help them to get engaged in listening, talking, as we've been doing. For 4 weeks now, we've had a variety of people on who've shared stories, poems. One has learned how to set up her own Zoom room, interviewed someone, and we're going to play it. There's one little thing that we're learning too as we talk, how voice changes from when you move close to the screen. Sometimes when you move close to the screen, it makes it warble. Sometimes different things happen. So as we learn those things, we are creating a reservoir of information to share with other seniors. There's a community center that was going to join us today. They're going to be joining us. They call Mariko, and she asked if we would connect them because they plan to do this with their center, and they're looking at how is it working for us and what things have to be done to make it easier for people to either. The first piece of technology that everybody has in common is, their phone, and there's so many things that people don't know about their phone. And in one of our first or second meetings with this podcast group, Luke showed people how to use the phone. We had people get their voice recorder out. And last week, Chris read a story that she first recorded on her phone. So this is a piece of technology that we can also explore more deeply, how to get people familiar with, because some people say, I don't touch anything. I don't know about the apps. It's like as you said, they're afraid to touch things.
And some of us don't have a smartphone. I've just got a flip phone. I just use it for text messages and phone calls for emergencies. That's it. I don't want a smartphone.
So, but I mean, that's one of the things that we know that we're able to do, and part of what our ambassador program is doing, helping to turn on the lights for other people. With that first initial thing that most of us have in common is at least the phone, because that's how they find out about classes, or they call to find out the center's closed, etc. And there have been some donations of phones that might be another way of getting people a smartphone. But we can't do anything with those phones until we're able to reach out and touch and put things in their hands.
Yeah, in terms of 411, the ukulele program, some of the people are practicing through Zoom and stuff, and I think one of the Spanish classes is. But as people may know, we've been trying to build a new center for like 12 years, right? And finally, it appears that we're going to be able to break ground and start construction in July. And we are actually hoping to do exactly what Charlotte said as part of our new senior center, is make it partially a virtual senior center. That's why this experience as a podcast and stuff is so helpful, because we want some of it to be virtual, you know, so we're trying to figure it out. Luke actually knows way more about this than I do, the virtual part.
Yeah, for sure. It's really interesting right now, just talking to Leslie about building the new center and how we're going to have to rethink about a lot of, you know, the designs of the center as a result of all this COVID stuff. So it's actually really exciting to be working on right now, but lots of uncertainty going forward for sure.
Okay, so what we usually, and we want to thank Luke for helping. We're getting the podcast up and posted, and he has helped Sylvie. There've been people that he's been able to help with particular challenges that they had with moving forward with things that they'd heard about or learned about. I get a lot of calls and email from people who are attempting to do things. So we do know that there is interest, and we do know that what each of you do is very valuable, because just like Pat reached out to for us to have an interview and meet Veronica, there next week we're going to have some people from Costco. At the end of the meeting last week, I think it was Gail mentioned, well, two of you mentioned Costco. There were questions or things that you'd like to have them answer. So Linda and I think the president of Costco are going to be on our call next week. But are there any things that people want to volunteer that you are burning to do or share next week?
No, and unfortunately I've got to go because I have another phone call. Thank you very much for having me, and I'd like to participate in future ones.
All right, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
before we leave, perhaps Veronica could type her contact information into the chat window, because she went very fast when she gave her phone number and website and email.
Sure, I'll add that on there right now.
Okay, cool.
I was just wondering about all the meetings that have already happened here on Zoom. Are they recorded someplace so you can go back and listen to them?
Yes, they're recorded, and we the first one is being posted now. We're going to post 4, and then we'll be working toward a point where a few days after.
But where are they posted?
Anchor. Luke, can you explain where they're being posted?
Yeah, so they're just posted on. They're posted as audio files as on the podcast sites. So if you type in Powered by Age into any of the podcast apps, it should come right up.
So on Powered by Age, it has a website, and there's an audio file. Is that what you're saying?
Well, we do have a Powered by Age website that I will put them on.
Okay.
But we literally just did that last night, so
Okay.
it's coming.
Is it Powered by Age, Age-Friendly City, or just Powered by Age?
It's just poweredbyage.com.
By the way, I have my little limerick, and it is about COVID, so I thought we'd send us off with this tiny little thing. It's funny, I think.
Okay. Well, one more point before. Next week, Leslie and Neil are doing just an excerpt from their compilation.
Okay. I did have some poems for today, but I guess we don't have time.
You know, but the one thing that this thing doesn't have that it should have is a big clock in the corner. Because
It is picture after 2, Charlotte.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Well, I'll zip with this then, and then we can.
Yeah, limerick's short.
And they're short. There's a colorful bug named COVID who's been around since Ovid. So it changed its name like his buddy Black Plague. Who's so rude? Through their house they exude into our bods of deadly flu. So COVID and his spikes can take a long hike off the shortest pier imaginable.
Thank you. That's cute.
That's great.
Pat, you said you had something short?
Not me.
Oh, who said that?
Yeah,
Leslie.
I've got, actually I wrote a couple of poems inspired by the quarantine. And there may be about a minute if I read one of those.
I've got to go because I'm going to a
Yeah.
ukulele class right now.
Okay.
Okay.
And I
So I
think
guess we're
To
out
go
of time.
also,
Bye-bye.
because I'm expected on another call. Thursdays is my busy day.
nice
Okay.
meeting you, Veronica.
Nice meeting you. Thank you so much for inviting me to this. It's
Yeah, it was great.
an opportunity for me as well.
Okay, bye-bye.
Great. Thank you,
Thank
Veronica.
you. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Okay, Leslie, did you want to share it?
Yeah, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Okay. I felt that my time has been I've had nowhere to go and everything's been kind of amorphous. And I came up with this thing called blob. My life stretches out in all four directions like a formless, amorphous amoeba, a blob floating in the void in the vast ocean of time, bathed in primordial fluid. I stretch my protoplasm into an aimless tentacle, a shapeless, fingerless hand as I reach out to you. Let us join together. Let us vibrate our cilia. Let us do the DNA dance, the mitochondrial mamba, the RNA rumba, the cellular slide, the twist of fate. We will grow together as one and grow larger as we expand. We will reach out to other blobs. We will weave a web of tentacles to form a parachute to lift us up from the primordial soup into the clear blue sky.
Wow. This
I
is
like
wonderful.
that very much.
Yeah.
Really nice.
Thank you. Yeah, so that was a happy one. My other one was a bit dark. So I'll save that for another time.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm happy.
All right. Well, thank you. This has been another episode, our May 7th episode of Powered by Age-Friendly City Ambassadors. And we are welcoming you to join us at this same time. We're on at 1 on Thursdays, and you can send an email to pbaafc@gmail.com if you're interested in joining our podcast.